everybody. It's Allie, and welcome to our Y&R Chat for Sunday, November 3rd, 2019. I loved the Halloween episode, and I didn't really even expect to. As soon as I realized it was going to be a very special episode of Y&R, I started to cringe a little bit, and not in a good way. I thought, oh no, is this going to be dumb and hokey? But it wasn't. I thought it was very creative. I thought it was visually interesting. And most of all, I thought it was really well thought out. Our Halloween 2019 episode featured 5 different vignettes, and it was showing us, each one, a nightmare scenario for 5 different characters. And the actually really kind of brilliant thing about it was that each nightmare centered around the character's deepest fears and insecurities. And in that way, I thought it was a great idea. Some of them were really poignant and dark, and some of them were really funny and fun, but it was a really cool way to show us 5 different stories and maybe even give us a little insight into those 5 different characters. Like, what are these people's deepest fears and insecurities that would show up in a nightmare? We had Phyllis's fear of becoming invisible, becoming irrelevant and broke and destitute. We had Nick's fear of giving into his hatred for Adam, allowing it to cause him to do something that's outside of his character, and ending up losing all of his loved ones, including Chelsea, over it. And we had Kyle's fear that Theo was going to come into the Abbott family and destroy and desecrate the family itself along with the family home. Then we had Ray's insecurity that he has to be bad and dangerous and risky in order to keep Sharon's attention, and fearing that ultimately she will betray him again. And then we had Abby's insecurity, that feeling like she's afraid that people see her as dumb and that no one will ever take her seriously as a legitimate business person. I thought these were great. I am really curious to know if you guys had a favorite. I mean, I know I saw some comments that a few people didn't really like the Halloween episode, but if you did like the Halloween episode, I thought it would be a fun poll question for the week to ask you guys which vignette you thought was best. Which was the best Halloween 2019 story? If you'd like to vote in that poll, you can go to yrchat.com. Let me know which of those 5 stories was your favorite. Why not? Maybe let me know which ones you liked the least too. I'll give you mine. I really loved, this is very predictable of me, but I really loved Kyle's 80s themed nightmare. It was very true to what Kyle's nightmare scenario would be, but it also maybe speaks to my generation a little bit. I love me some 80s, and I was delighted to see Kyle and Lola dressed up as Ferris and Sloan from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I thought that was adorable. I wonder though if the actors who play Kyle and Lola, had to go do a little research to figure out what that even was. I mean, I know that it's not all that long ago, but I can't imagine that the 20-somethings of today are rushing out to have gone and seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Maybe they know it as a cultural reference or something, but I thought it was a fun pull. I thought Lola's look was spot on. OMG, that jacket. I gotta get me one of those. And her hair was done perfectly. Her makeup was done perfectly. They were really cute together. And I really loved the frat party that Theo was throwing at the Abbott mansion. I mean, again, this speaks perfectly to Kyle's fears and what's going on in his mind right now. It's a really creative way to represent that. Kyle walks into the Abbott mansion, realizes that Theo has destroyed the place with one of his wild parties. And not only that, but he's dragging everybody else down with him. Abby took on the role of the quintessential 80s Valley girl. And Mariah was taking on the role of the mean girl. And then you had Lola off in the corner being the whiny girlfriend. All of the tropes were represented, especially Theo giving me a James Spader 80s villain, but also kind of like a Don Knotts Miami Vice vibe with his white suit and his sunglasses flipped on top of his head. I loved it. I love that they tied that in so well. The 80s frat party. It was like Animal House in the 70s gave way to all of these, you know, frat house movies in the 80s. I mean, it was like a nerds, Revenge of the Nerds style kind of frat party. It was just like jocks and nerds, and it was fun. I don't know. I just liked it. I thought it was really well done. And the best part, of course, was Jack. In Kyle's dream, Jack walks into this wild party and tries to stop it, but Theo reveals that he has had Jack declared incompetent so that he can take over the mansion and probably the company and the whole Abbott shebang all on his own. Wouldn't that be a twist? I loved the way the two goons came and carried Jack off the set. I mean, Peter Bergman looked like he was having fun with it. Walking around in that blazer with a sweater tied around his shoulders. I mean, that was a nice little visual piece of satire right there. Like Jack's jacket needed a sweater. Okay. Two visual fashion tropes from the 80s tied into one. That's satire. That's funny. I thought this story had absolutely everything. It was funny. The costumes were great, but it was also a totally legitimate nightmare for Kyle. And as it ends, Theo is giving Kyle a noogie, saying to him, hey, yeah, it's you and me, bro, just like old times, except this party goes on for eternity. I thought that Abby was great in Kyle's nightmare. In fact, I think that Abby was a real standout star of the Halloween episode because she was really great in her Mary Tyler Moore Show Gone Wrong sitcom. I love that she saw herself as the star of the show. We see her throwing her hat into the air, Mary Tyler Moore style, as she goes into her restaurant where she thinks she's in charge, and little by little realizes that she's actually the butt of the joke. She's actually being laughed at, and she has no control. She only has the illusion of control. I liked it. I thought the actress did a great job. I really liked seeing this character slash actress let her hair down a little bit and be a little irreverent and maybe even poke a little bit of fun at the character. Abby's story also provided the framing for the entire episode. She was the start and the finish, and she is the mistress of the hotel where 3 of the nightmares were taking place. And I thought it was so cute the way she woke up from her nightmare. And she was just, she ended the episode just being so elated that she was herself. I'm me. Oh, good. I'm me. I like my life. I thought that was a happy note to end it on. She was flipping through an issue of Sophisticate magazine with her very own face plastered on the cover. Oh, please tell me that each room at the Grand Phoenix Hotel has come furnished with a copy of Abby's Sophisticate magazine feature cover story. I was just so in love with the idea of the self-centered Valley girl Abby in Kyle's nightmare and the playfulness that she had in her nightmare. I wouldn't believe that the real Abby bought up every single copy of that magazine and made sure that every room in her hotel had one. Phyllis's nightmare was a little bit of a miss for me. I would say this was probably my least favorite. Although, more than any other story, I think Phyllis's played a little bit more like something out of the Twilight Zone. I expected a Rod Serling voiceover. She had all the power to make others disappear, until the day she herself became invisible in the Twilight Zone. You know, it was a little surreal. I did enjoy the Newman family, though, ignoring her and how desperate she was to get their attention while hating them at the same time. And then they just broke out into this really mean, cruel laughter at the idea that she had gone destitute. I mean, that is so Twilight Zone-y. And it was kind of devilishly funny. I do have to admit, I laughed when they laughed. I thought that was charming, but yeah, I don't know. There was just something not as great about that story. Half the time I was just trying to figure out why Phyllis had gray hair while Sharon, playing her bumbling assistant, had perfect brown locks. Phyllis aged into the future, but Sharon's young. Sharon got younger, Phyllis got older, but Sharon got younger. That's the real nightmare she should have been having. Sharon was the real scene stealer in Phyllis's nightmare. I hate to admit it, but Sharon was funny. She was bumbling and fumbling in just the right way, frantically fluffing the flowers. It was just funny. And then Sharon turned around and was super sexy in her sexy jewel thieves story with Ray robbing the ranch, and then wanting to make out at the scene of the crime. Poor Ray. Even in his dreams, he is not very adventurous. He was still hesitant to go through with the making love at the scene of the crime part. Ray should have just been happy that Sharon didn't want to burn the place down. Oh. But then in the story, Sharon ends up turning on him, really illuminating that fear is still there. Sharon sets him up and runs away with who? Adam. Adam, who was, by the way, dead in Nick's nightmare. How appropriate that Adam's casket was jet black with a bundle of black roses lying on the casket. I mean, he had an all-black funeral. That is a real fashion choice right there, even in death. The all-black funeral. I would have thought that should have been Victor's funeral right there. The Black Knight should have the all-black funeral. Where'd they find that big bundle of black roses? They had a special order that. Well, in Nick's nightmare, he walks into the ranch and everyone's there accusing him of having been the one to kill Adam, and he all of a sudden has this knife in his hand and he's insisting that he didn't do it. He wouldn't do something like this. And I actually really felt bad for Nick, because of all the stories, Nick's was the darkest. Nick's was the saddest, and he in fact seemed deeply sad and deeply confused that his hatred for Adam would have turned himself into a different person, would have consumed him to the point of doing something that he would never do, killing his brother. And of course, Nick, having done that, drove Chelsea away and unearthed her real feelings for Adam. So, I mean, this was definitely a nightmare scenario, showing us the deepest fears that Nick would have as they translate to himself in his own life, but also as it translates to his relationship with Chelsea and his family. I mean, everybody was being hateful toward Nick. His own mother, his sister, everyone was, singing Adam's praises, justifying everything he's ever done, and Nick's just standing there like, wait, no, that's not how it happened. Yeah, in some ways, it occurred to me that maybe in that scene, the Newman family was treating Nick in the way that the Newman family has treated Adam. So there was a little bit of maybe some feelings about that he wouldn't normally have noted, like maybe he was stepping in Adam's shoes a little bit. I don't know. I thought that the most unrealistic part of Adam's funeral in the nightmare was the fact that the Newman family was shedding even a tear at Adam's death at all. I was a little impressed with Nate for standing up to Victor. I mean, yes, it was 100%, absolutely no doubt about it, his decision to go along with Victor's plan to fake his own death, but Nate did so trusting that Victor was actually going to follow through with the plan, that Victor was actually going to have the man who Nate believed to be a threat to his patient's life, Adam, arrested in the end. And that's not what happened. Instead, Victor let Adam get off scot-free, and everybody else had to deal with the consequences. The non-Newmans had to deal with the repercussions. The measly underlings took the fall for the plan gone wrong. And now Nate's Wisconsin medical license is under review, and he needs an attorney with some real tenacity to help him out. He needs an attorney who has never lost a case. Who could that be? Who is someone who we know who Nate could hire, that could help him, that have that tenacity, and who has also never lost a case? Isn't it kind of insensitive of Nate to ask Amanda to stay around to take his case when he knows that the mere presence of this woman hurts Devon so deeply? Doesn't Nate, in fact, owe Devon the choice of picking another attorney? Doesn't he owe it to Devon to pick a different attorney? I would still argue that Nate played a role in Hillary's death. Mr. Risky Surgery over here. She never recovered after that. So I would think that the very least that Nate could do would be to not cause Devon any more harm. There's other attorneys. Even Amanda was like, you might want to hire somebody else. Isn't this going to be kind of difficult for Devon? Why did Amanda have to be the one to bring that up? But I don't know. I guess Nate's case is so compelling, she decides to take it and to stay in town to help him. Oh, well, I'm thinking at this point, if anybody can get down to the bottom of whether or not Amanda is a scammer, it should be Victor Newman, because Victor was paying Amanda all kinds of lip service when they met this week to talk about Nate's case. Victor was offering to help Nate in any way he can, testifying in court, writing a statement, whatever he's got to do. And he was also making sure to not relate Amanda to Hillary, going out of his way to say she's her own woman. And he's playing nicey nice to her face. And then as soon as he leaves the meeting, he's outside on his phone with his private investigator telling them to find out everything they can about Amanda Sinclair. I don't know why he was so suspicious of her coming out of that meeting. But what I'd really love to see is Victor maybe teaming up with Devon to get to the bottom of Amanda, if there is anything. Although I suspect that Y&R is just wanting to show Victor coming up with nothing. I really don't think they're headed in a scammer direction with Amanda at all. I wonder if they think that Victor, having called his PI, will lend some credibility to the character if indeed Victor's PI comes up with nothing. But I'd like to see Victor talking to Devon. Even just one scene with Devon now would be really great, sharing information and resources, maybe kicking back together. Devon and Victor sharing some Halloween candy, maybe watching The Price is Right. Victor made that joke this week to Nikki about his new retirement lifestyle, just watching Price is Right on TV. Can you even imagine Victor watching The Price is Right? Or better yet, what about Victor being a contestant on The Price is Right? That would be so good. Oh, they should do that as a crossover. Oh my goodness. Victor would be the worst. He would not be able to accurately guess the prices of anything. He's a billionaire. Imagine it right now. Drew Carey and Victor Newman standing on the stage there together, and Drew asks Victor to guess the price of a pack of gum. Oh, I don't know, $2,000, Drew. Oh, I love the idea of Victor and Nikki kicking back and watching Price is Right now. But Nikki's too busy. Nikki has got way too much going on. I think it would have been great if Nikki had agreed to become Nick's campaign manager for his city council run. Nikki was so proud of him, and I loved the way she was looking on at her son as he was announcing his candidacy. I mean, Nikki was positively glowing. In every way, Nick is more like Nikki than he ever was like Victor. And I just felt that. I saw it, felt it. I don't know if Melody Thomas Scott was in an especially good mood during the taping of that episode, but she was really reminding me of my Nikki from yesteryear. She just seemed, I don't know, girlish or playful or something. There was just something more fun about Nikki during those scenes with Nick. She was not real pleased, though, about the fact that Chelsea ended up not showing up to Nick's big press conference announcement. I mean, he's standing there in front of the press getting ready to announce his candidacy, and he keeps trying to delay because Chelsea's not there. And he was heartbroken when she didn't end up showing up. And I'm sure he can't make sense of it. Chelsea had encouraged Nick to run for public office. In fact, Chelsea was helping him pick out his clothes for the press conference just a couple of hours prior. I really loved that scene, by the way, of Chelsea taking off his jacket, taking off his tie. Of course, he thought he was going to get himself a little some for a second. But no, and he was perfectly fine with it. I mean, he went to the trouble of getting dressed, and she could have kept undressing him, and he would have gone right along with it, even if it would have made him late for his press conference. We all know what Nick's Achilles heel is. But the reason I loved that scene was that it showed Chelsea's fashion sense. You know, Nick's trying to go to this press conference wearing his expensive custom-made Italian suit, and Chelsea has this sensibility about fashion and presentation, and she tells him, no, this isn't what you want to wear. This doesn't project man of the people. And it was a great reminder that Chelsea was a fashion designer. We haven't seen any of that since she's come back to town. It's just one more instance where I feel like this is a different Chelsea, and I think that gets in the way maybe of the viewers who remember her connecting in with her again. But I am loving this direction for Nick. I gotta tell you, seeing Nick discover himself, it's just wonderful. In fact, Nick had this really wonderful realization on Friday. I think he was talking to Nikki, saying, or maybe it was talking to Chelsea. I can't remember who he said it to, but he was saying, I've spent so much of my life trying to define myself by who I'm not. And now here I am trying to define who I am. And I really got a sense of that because he has spent so much of his life trying to defy being the son of Victor Newman. And a lot of his decision making has become it's come from that. You know, it's just very true that he spent his life trying to define who he wasn't. And so here we are on the precipice of something new for Nick and him trying to realize who he is. And the whole son of Victor Newman vibe never suited him anyway. So here he is now realizing that he has a desire to do something better with his life. He has a greater purpose, saying, I just want to help people. And that seems to fit his personality really, really well. I didn't like it when Y&R tried to make him the Adam of the show. I didn't really like or connect with the Dark Horse thing. They tried very hard to make Nick dark, and it doesn't really match the actor's sensibility. I think this matches him so much better. It is going to be so sad to watch Chelsea screw this up for him. We all know it's coming. It took Chelsea about 5 minutes of being a Nick for city council booster before she realized the whole part about politicians having their lives up for public scrutiny. Took her about 5 minutes before she realized that her dirty laundry is going to be aired out and exposed to everyone. Enter Simon Black. This guy gives me the skeeves. He is oozing with evil. There's just something about his look, his vibe, something about his New Orleans Southern drawl too. Like, it's a unique enough accent to make this character really notable, really stand out, and really feel extra edgy. It sounds like this actor he's had some other roles on soaps. It sounds like they're bringing him on as a full cast member. Do not get me started about how we could have plopped Kane down into this villain role and given him this story. Having trouble working him in my eye. They work with who they want to work with. They do what they want to do. I'm not going to take it out on the new guy, though, because I think he seems promising. He materialized in Genoa City at the Grand Phoenix this week, giving Chelsea the creepy eyes. Identified himself as an associate of Calvin's, who is very clearly looking for that dirty money that he believes belongs to him. He creeped Chelsea out enough, rightly so, that Chelsea turned around immediately and begs Kevin to give her that money back. Only Kevin, unfortunately, has to inform her that the money is gone. He had it in an offshore bank, which apparently was being investigated by the authorities. And the bank, along with all of the accounts and all of the money, got seized by the authorities. Pretty sure that means the money is forever gone, unless you want to go to the trouble of trying to get it back, but then you have to probably prove how you got it. So Chelsea's in big bad trouble here. She has a debt of $2 million to this guy, and the only thing that she can do is either find another way to pay him off. All of her money's tied up in this hotel though, but she can find another way to scrape together $2 million or siphon it out of Grand Phoenix or whatever. That's just gonna end up digging her a deeper hole than she's already in, trying to give this guy some money somehow. Or the other option is she doesn't give him any money at all and he ends up exposing her publicly, and that might happen either way. Here we see the beginning of the end of Nick and Chelsea's relationship. Ain't it? Just the worst breaks for Nick. Here Nick is. He has finally found a path that he finds personally fulfilling, something that means something to him, something that makes him happy. And Chelsea's scandal will be exposed. Nick will be humiliated. It will be the end of their relationship. And yet, the new and improved Adam will be there to welcome her with open arms, and you know it. Crafty Connor had a Halloween costume emergency this week. Actually, the emergency was Connor didn't want to go trick-or-treating with Chelsea and Nick and Christian. Connor would rather stay home with his dad, and he would way rather have Chelsea there with them, staying at the penthouse, having one big happy little family there. It's Connor's dream come true, and he's getting it. And in large part, I think it's because Chelsea feels very torn. She wants to be with Nick, but she also has to keep her loyalty with her son. And it's worth noting that Chelsea feels she's losing that relationship with her son, while when she's with Adam and Connor at the penthouse, they're all getting along. Adam has become a little bit of the gateway to Connor, and to Connor being pleased with her, and to getting their relationship back. So Chelsea and Adam and Connor are sitting on the couch, just like old times probably, watching a scary Halloween flick, having Chelsea's famous Parmesan popcorn, which sounds really good, although I have to tell you, I also was completely on board with Adam's suggestion to put cayenne pepper in that popcorn. I always put cayenne pepper in my popcorn, along with little paprika, garlic salt, onion powder, salt, black pepper, and yes, I was Team Adam all the way with that cayenne pepper. Of course, you don't really want to do that for a kid. Kids can handle a mild spice like Parmesan. I was grossed out by how Chelsea was like kneading in the spices with her hand. Girl, get a spoon. But I understand why those hands needed to be a little sticky and a little icky. It was so that she couldn't get to the phone when Nick was calling her. Poor Nick. He was left all alone in his Old West cowboy saloon Deadwood looking costume. Deadwood indeed. He tried calling Chelsea, but she after the movie she'd fallen asleep on Adam's couch. And Adam comes in and he sees her, and he covers her up with a blanket. And he looks over onto the coffee table and sees that call from Nick coming through. Ignored that. Ignore. Didn't wake Chelsea up, didn't say a thing, just stood there in that moment looking at her and feeling the completeness in his life that he has been searching for. Victor pays a visit to Adam. And I was surprised that Adam started talking about wanting to leave town with Connor, as if he even has the ability to do that. He doesn't have custody of Connor. But maybe Adam was just pushing Victor's buttons, because immediately when Adam talked about leaving town with one of the grandchildren, Victor told Adam that he would not allow it. Victor believes that Connor needs his family right now. And Adam says to Victor, wait a minute, the Newmans are not a family? I don't want Connor anywhere near you, never did. And I don't want to have anything to do with any of you. So, I guess that means that Adam will not be returning to Newman Enterprises anytime soon. So Victor's second visit goes to Victoria at Newman Enterprises, just to reinforce that she's taken over that helm. Although I couldn't help but notice that he had no problem making himself comfortable in that chair behind the desk, and she didn't seem to have a problem with it. He ceremoniously gave Victoria that chair a couple of weeks ago. So, you know, in her mind, she had to have been thinking, can I offer you a different chair? A couch, perhaps? Any of the other wonderful chairs in this office? Is there anywhere else you might like to sit, Father? She took it in stride, but she didn't say a word. She showed him some documents, made him feel like he was still important. Maybe that's what it's more about, making him feel important. But Victor had no problem kicking back in that chair, acting like he was the CEO in charge, and telling Victoria what to do with her life. I mean, he was asking about Billy. Of course, she was flattered that Victor was taking an interest in her life, but really it was more of a warning. Victor had just come from seeing Adam, and Victor was telling Victoria that she needs to keep an eye on Billy. Billy had better be on the up and up, because next time he might not be so lucky. Maybe Victor's not going to be able to cover up what he did to Adam. I think it's interesting that Victor chose to keep Billy's secret and didn't tell Adam that we know of. Yeah, no, I don't know. I got the feeling that Billy is not going to stay on the up and up. I think Victor issued a warning, was more of a premonition to come. I get the feeling that Billy is just at the beginning of the next downward spiral. Billy and Adam come face to face. Of course, the last time they were face to face, Adam's face was being illuminated by car headlights, while Billy's face was behind the wheel of that car. Adam finally figures out that Billy was the one who tried to kill him, but unless I missed it, there was no indication about why or how Adam figured this out. Adam just, I guess, had this sudden realization of the thing that was basically staring him in the face all along, and also which caused him to almost kill his father over. Victor didn't tell him, so how did he figure that out? How did he figure that out all of a sudden when he should have figured it out way before now? I don't know. Adam figured it out, confronted Billy, and the two guys left it on a weird note of, yeah, we don't like each other, but let's just, in quotes, move forward. We're just gonna move forward. There was no real truth, but there was also no real threats. But it still feels threatening, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know. I'm fine with Adam and Billy being enemies. I did like the dark dynamic that was going on between them. I just don't want it to mean that we are going to have to forever keep rehashing the Delia debate that we've been having for the past 6 years now. It was Billy's fault. It was Adam's fault. It was both. Okay? I don't know. Billy did get some follow-up counseling, and I mean, that was good to see, because I didn't believe that he was even going to his therapist. But still, Billy is showing me two different faces. I mean, he says he's better, but he's still showing me two different faces. To most people, including his therapist, he cannot stop talking about how fine he is. I'm fine, doing great, in fact. Yet, he's giving these occasionally secret, sinister looks when the topic of Adam comes up, or when when Adam has his back turned at the end of their confrontation scene. It's definitely a dark Billy, and Billy's new dark attitude was totally reflected in his choice of Halloween costume. Man! Billy was really rocking that dark vampire attire. It was kind of turning me on. I was like, ooh, what? Billy kind of turned me on as this dark vampire. Top hat, long black coat, round color mirror glasses. Like, he was giving me bad boy, rock star, vampire. I was swooning. I don't even know what that says about me. I didn't expect it. It just hit me out of nowhere like, oh God, that's kind of hot. Maybe I have been looking at this Billy situation all wrong. Maybe I need to stop focusing on the whole Stark personality change of it all and start focusing on the fact that Billy's kind of hot. Hey, I gotta find somebody else to take the Kane sweet spot, okay? Phyllis thinks that Adam is a brilliant rebel. You wanna know how I know? Because she said it about a dozen different times within the same scene. Adam, you're brilliant. You're a brilliant rebel. You're brilliant, Adam. You're a rebel. Join forces with me to bring down your father, to bring down Newman Enterprises. It would be so hot. I mean, satisfying. The revenge. Sex. Oh, Phyllis. We see through you. We know what you really want from him. There's no other reason why you're making so many excuses for him and trying to float his boat and his ego. You're brilliant. Sleep with me. But Adam does not give Phyllis what she wants, the sex, and he doesn't help her decide to do whatever he's got to do to get revenge on Victor either. But he does, in a bold, weird, perplexing move, he walks over to that little bureau desk that's in his living room, and he pulls out a pre-written check, presumably pre-made out to Phyllis, for $10 million. Whoa! Good thing, like, did he just have that there for just in case? Or was it specifically, was he waiting for Phyllis to come see him knowing that she would? Like, man. How do you even write a check for $10 million? It's like $10 million and 00 over 100 cents. Do you really do that? Or would you not prefer to wire an amount of money like that? But then you don't get the dramatic effect of her ripping it up. He tells her to just take this. I'm tired of having this conversation about revenge against my father. I'm not into it. Stop badgering me for sex. Take this money. Go away. Hey, friend, just take this money and go away. Follow your dreams, whatever they are, but leave me alone. And Phyllis has the audacity to rip up the $10 million check into $1 million pieces right in front of his face. $10 million. She'd rather have Adam as her brilliant rebel friend than the $10 million. Really? apparently settling for that Kevin Fisher as a best friend will just not do. Kevin Fisher, I loved that Adam suggested that to her, that if she's really looking for someone who's a little bit down and dirty, why don't you go check out Kevin Fisher? Give me a break. You give that guy $2 million to quietly launder, and then poof, 2 weeks later, all the money is gone. Who even needs an ally like that? Can you even believe that old schoolmate of Dina's still gossiping about her 60 years later? After 60 years, give the woman a break. This woman, remembering somebody else's love story in vivid detail. Okay. She tells Tracy and Jack that Dina and Stuart were so magically in love with one another. They slept together in one terrible, horrible night. Dina confided in her about that, but then kind of disappeared. Dina went off to Europe for a year. The assumption is she went off to have the baby and hide the pregnancy and then came back to John. So this baby, by the way, whoever it ends up being, or, you know, we know who it's going to end up being, but this person should be older than Jack, by the way. So I don't know that we're going to get that out of the actor who's been cast, but it's worth noting that this guy should be older than Jack. He's the firstborn of Dina. And, you know, it's just the ridiculousness of the whole story still gets me. It's like, from the story that this woman told, Tracy takes this nugget of info and she traces it to a book that was inventoried by the Mergeron company. Like, are you kidding me? This lady told Tracy that Dina and Stuart connected over the play Hamlet. They were both stars of the show and it was just magic between them. And Tracy remembers seeing a copy of Hamlet, can you freaking believe this, in the Mergeron, and listed, of all the things listed in the Mergeron Company documentation, she remembers a copy of Shakespeare's Hamlet. She calls and orders it up, has the book brought to the Abbott house, finds it, opens it up, and guess what? A pair of adoption papers that just fall onto the floor. Hidden in the book, and the name Eric Vanderway is on those adoption papers. Okay, so Vanderway. Jack recognizes this name a little bit and pulls Kyle into the investigation. Kyle at first is in complete denial that he could even share a single drop of blood with Theo Vanderway. Probably because it makes that time that they slept together in New York that one night even more awkward now. Ah! But then, to further investigate, Kyle invites Theo, this is sad, for a sit-down dinner with him. And Theo seemed genuinely touched by the idea that Kyle wanted to break bread with him. But Kyle was just lightly trying to pry him open to talk about his father. And Theo does. He proudly shows Kyle a pocket watch of his father's that was a memento that he kept from his own father. Flip it over to the back and it has his father's initials engraved on it. E.V. Did you guys need any help making sense of this story at that point in it? Like this complex mystery of the initials? Because last week we had the perplexing case of the invite from D to S. And now this week we have the mystery of E.V. Ooh, who could it be? Not much of a mystery, really. Theo readily gives Kyle the information that he's been looking for. Theo's father's name is Eric Vanderway. Kyle takes that information to Jack, and Jack takes it upon himself to just call Theo over to the mansion. And Kyle begged Jack not to do it, not to tell Theo a thing about this. Kyle says that Theo is going to use this information to manipulate them somehow. But Jack is not going to be stopped. He tells Kyle it'll all work out. Just, I'm going to do it. Kyle storms off when Theo shows up, so Jack and Theo are alone together. Jack tells Theo everything, and Theo also really seemed shocked. He really seemed to think his father was dead, and also to have this information about an adoption, which was never mentioned, and also to realize that he could be related to the Abbotts, related to Kyle. Theo agrees to have a DNA test, which Jack said would only take a couple days. I'm assuming we're going to get that information next week, or who knows, maybe the week after. But Theo immediately goes to Crimson Lights, probably knowing that he's going to run into Kyle. And Theo really sweetly tries broing it up with Kyle some more. Like, wow, it all makes sense now. No wonder we were so drawn to each other that one night. We're cousins! It all makes sense now. But Kyle was not having it. Kyle is very quick to let Theo know that they are not bros. Kyle does not trust him. He does not want him anywhere near his family. He was faking the entire dinner meeting that they had the previous day. And Theo was so good. He did not miss a beat. As soon as Kyle revealed that he was playing Theo for information prior, Theo just says, Uncle Jack would be very disappointed by that. He's already in. Theo is already in. And Kyle knows it. Kyle just storms right off. Who's jealous now? Right? Seems like Kyle does not like the idea of someone else coming in, especially Theo, and possibly threatening his position in the family, possibly threatening his position in the family business, which Kyle is trying real hard to establish for himself. I mean, you know Jack is going to turn around and give Theo a job a couple weeks, couple months from now. Jack's going to thrust Theo right into the middle of the Billy and Kyle feud, and Billy is probably going to happily take Theo on as an ally. So what this does is put Kyle into a position where he's the only one not carrying pom-poms for Theo. Jack likes him. Billy's going to like him. I mean, even his wife kind of likes him. How about a quick round of Halloween costume, best and worst dress? Anyone want to join me? Well, honestly, both my best and worst dressed for Halloween costume go to Sharon and Ray. Best was Sharon. I know this is crazy because it was so simple, but I loved Sharon's little kitty ears when they were at the Grand Phoenix together. It was so simple, yet completely age appropriate, and it came off as very sexy. Just Sharon in a pair of kitty ears. Best Halloween costume of 2019. But Ray's foxy, fangy mask thing had to go. I wanted to scream at my TV, get that thing off his face! Ugh. It was weird and awful, and I felt awkward for him. Thank God that they didn't keep that on during the sex scene. That was the first unsexy thing that Ray Rosales has ever done in my eyes. But it's worth noting, though, that Sharon kept on her kitty ears for the sex scene. Meow. Oh, there costumes of note. Most of the costumes took place inside of the vignettes, but you know, Nick and Chelsea went as the Old West. Nick was kind of a saloon cowboy, and Chelsea was kind of a chickadee. I don't know. It seemed a little predictable. It seemed like Nick and Chelsea were straight out of Y&R's old wardrobe department. Like, throw on whatever costume we got around. It just wasn't very imaginative. I thought that Billy and Victoria's vampires were a little bit more fresh, a little bit more modern. And I already swooned about Billy, so I won't continue to go on about that. But I really did think that Victoria looked gorgeous. I don't know exactly what she was supposed to be. Billy said he was a vampire. And Victoria, I'm assuming then would be a vampiress. I don't know. Somebody else said corpse bride. And I thought, maybe that's it. I know there was a lot of people questioning what Nick and Chelsea were. I mean, that was very obvious. That's just Old West generic. But I do kind of wish people would say what they are. You know, because every year it seems like we all go, okay, what are you? That's half of Halloween, though. It's like everybody's making their own little personal reference with their Halloween costume. It's your own little costumey fashion statement, and half the costumes you go, okay, what are you, though? I don't know what that is. Here's some candy, move on. But I thought that Victoria looked very put together. She had on this little flowy fascinator coming down in the back with different colored scarves, like a pink accent scarf, and she had on this, the dress had like a ruffled collar, but then a corset dress. It was all black. I thought she looked really nice. I was disappointed though, because my hopes for seeing Adam in a red leotard were dashed. What was it that Adam was for a Halloween? Oh, wait, he was Adam. Adam was Adam for Halloween. The creepiest costume of all! Money doesn't buy happiness, but it sure will buy you an elaborate Halloween costume. No, I'm just kidding. That was not last week's quote. Last week's Who Said It quote was, money doesn't buy happiness, but it sure solves a lot of problems. I love the simplicity of that statement. It's very real. It's very down to earth, and that's what should tell you that Devon said it. A lot of people guessed that. Not gonna lie. Devon was talking to Elena and weighing his decision about his inheritance, and yes, the money didn't buy him his happiness, but he was able to help solve a lot of problems, not just for himself, but for other people with that money. So a lot of people guessed that that was Devon. Congratulations, Joanne, Henry, Nicole, Lynn, Sandra, Keisha, Tina, Jamie, Jillian, Sheila, Christy, Nancy, Martha, Tom, Janice, Susan, TB84, Ambreen, and Diana. Yay! Oh, how about a new quote for the week? Here's one. Do I look like a scientist? I think a scientist is probably one of the only trope costumes that I didn't see represented this year. Who said it? Do I look like a scientist? If you think you know, you can go to yrchat.com to leave your guess. And if you get it right, I will give you your shout out on next week's Y&R Chat. Okay, my Y&R Chat friends, let's read your comments for the week. Kicking off with Gary here. Gary says, what a Midwest local yokel. Nick trying to get his mother to manage his campaign. Give me a break. Yeah, Gary, Nick needed his mommy to manage his campaign. Yeah, it's not very highbrow, right? But I mean, I don't know. I was disappointed that Nikki turned Nick down. I think it would have given her something to do. I mean, you want to talk about somebody give me a break. I roll my eyes every single time that Nikki makes reference to her job at Newman Enterprises and how much she loves it. We have literally never seen Nikki take a Newman Enterprises related phone call or even pick up a Newman Enterprises logo emblazoned manila folder. It's ridiculous. Also ridiculous, Laura notes, a press conference at Crimson. I was expecting Chancellor Park. I gotta tell you, I thought the press conference at Crimson Lights was weird. I mean, not only the fact that Nick kept putting off all of the reporters, they were all crammed onto the back patio. He kept putting them off. The second he walked onto the back patio, they were all applauding, like, oh, hooray! As if anybody in reality gives a crap about you running for city council. It's not even like, I mean, I don't know how big Genoa City is, but I could run, I'm gonna tell you, I could run for city council where I am right now and win. It doesn't seem like that much of a challenge, but I guarantee you if I walk right in, nobody's gonna applaud me just for running. And then I love, the worst part about it though, was the fact that after the press conference was over, what's her name? I can't remember what her name was. The short-haired lady who was pushing Nick to run. She just ushered all of the reporters out of the room, and they all just went, okay. They all applauded him, took his note, and then just single file moved off the stage. Ridiculous. They should have done something other than Crimson. Or maybe, ooh, they should have built out the back patio from Crimson. That would be cute too. I know we're limited. Or even society. They could have done it in the society corridor or something. He could have given some press to Abby's business. It's weird. Oh, Diana says, I am very intrigued by this Sam character. He is perfect for the role of shady and sleazy. He's a very natural actor who is believable. I look forward to this storyline. I'm interested to see what will happen with him and Chelsea. I know, right? It's so funny. He is very natural. That guy just nails villain. That guy should have been a devil for Halloween. Ooh, that would have been good if he'd have shown up in a devil costume. But you know, the interesting thing about that scene was that he came off as being real friendly. I mean, real friendly at first. He was even hitting on Chelsea a little bit lightly. Like, it seemed weird but friendly at first, and knowing how sinister it actually was, it's a nice little piece of acting, just a couple of nice little moments. And it sounds like from the preview, he's going to be back rather quickly. I think Chelsea was pretty much wearing the same thing in the previews, and he was coming back to pressure her some more. So we have definitely not seen the last of him, and I agree, he is very intriguing. Annie D says, Chelsea's going to get Nick in a whole lot of trouble if he becomes the councilman. They're going to find out about the money laundering after the votes are in, and Adam or Phyllis are going to find out about Chelsea's scheme. Phyllis will use it against her, and Adam will blackmail her into staying with him and Connor. Oh, Annie D. Well, okay, first of all, I think you have just hit the nail on the head about Phyllis setting up that security cam. That's what it's about. Phyllis is going to catch Chelsea on the security cam, having these meetings with this guy, or possibly she could catch him or catch Chelsea siphoning off money from the hotel or something. But no doubt about it, Phyllis is going to be the one to expose Chelsea. Is his name Sam? It was Simon, wasn't it? I can't remember. I think it was Simon. Now I'm trying to remember. But, you know, as far as Adam blackmailing Chelsea with the info in order to have her stay at the penthouse with Connor, I don't think he's going to need to do that. I think Y&R is showing us Adam's redemption story, so I don't think they're going to have blackmail anytime in his future. I personally think that Nick is, maybe he'll get the seat. I don't know. Maybe he'll be exposed before he takes office, or as you say, it could come in after he's already won the seat, and then he'll have this, he'll be torn between whether to help Chelsea with this or to preserve his new image as the city councilman, and maybe it'll just sort of be this heartbreaking goodbye with them. But either way we slice it, she's running back to Adam. Yep, that's where her son is. Daisy says, I hope Chelsea contacts her mother, as Anita might be able to help find out if Simon is a part of what Calvin has done, or if he's working for someone else, like Phyllis. Ooh, I hadn't thought about Simon working for Phyllis, but man, I kind of wish they would bring Anita back. I didn't like her at all at first, but for some reason I do. I really liked her the last time around. For crying out loud, she's the one that was involved with giving Chelsea the money. Anita should be the #1 phone call that Chelsea makes next week. You found this money and you gave it to me. You dropped this problem in my lap, so you better come here and help me fix it. Oh, I hope. Well, Daisy also says, I kind of like Nick moving in a different direction. He's needed something new since his place burned down. Yeah. I know, the Dark Horse thing just didn't fit, and the Underground burned down. I really like this direction for Nick, too. I think he has needed something new, and frankly, I think the same argument that can be made for cutting Kane could have applied to Nick at any time within the last year or two. I mean, Nick's character has seemed lost and aimless with nothing to do. But they didn't cut Nick because Nick is a Newman and the writers chose to work with his character. There's no excuse. There's no excuses. They just didn't want to work with Kane. Getting me started on this topic. So we better look at that poll question. I asked you guys last week what you think about Daniel Goddard being fired from Y&R. Hey, I gotta say, I am surprised. 88% of you thought it was a really bad idea that they fired Kane. Ooh, this was a pretty highly voted in poll too. 12% of you were kind of glad to see him go. You know, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I'm happy to see the support for Daniel Goddard, because I gotta tell you, I mean, I will go onto Google and I search Daniel Goddard fired, and I find any number of articles reporting on the incident, and you scroll down to the comments, and the vile things that people say about him and anywhere else, it is just unbelievable. It's one thing to not like the character. That's totally legit. If you don't like the character, don't like the actor, that's totally fine. But it is just shocking to me that anyone would take the time to tear down. And it's visceral too. It's not just I don't like him. Like, people were saying horrible things about him. So I have to say, I'm happy to see that Y&R Chat is not the place for that. And there's a reason. It's because I don't let it happen. Believe me, I see and moderate all kinds of comments with all kinds of disgusting things said, and I don't let them go through, because the whole reason I started Y&R Chat was because I didn't want to participate in that whole yuckiness that exists with Y&R fans. I wanted a place where people were positive and loving about the show. But that certainly doesn't mean that you have to like Kane. Certainly doesn't mean that you have to like him because I happen to like him. But I actually was pleased to at least see that the majority of fans felt, pro-Kane. Kyle says, knowing that you think he's a hottie, I extend my sympathies, Allie. But for the past few years, Kane has felt like filler. Neither good nor bad, and I just haven't cared about what he's up to in Genoa City / Genoa Junction. The writers could have been more decisive, and maybe I would feel differently now, but he just seems so aimless and boring. But again, my sympathies until he returns in late 2020 / early 2021. Well, thank you for your sympathies, Kyle. And again, this is legit. You can not like Kane, 100%. I would just argue that he has seemed aimless and like filler because the writers just didn't do anything with him. I don't know why on earth Kane had to be all about Lily. I like Kane independent of his relationship with Lily. They could have broke Kane and Lily up and paired Kane with somebody else at any point down the road and I would have been fine. Or make him a villain. I just think that there was options. There was definitely things that they could do with him and they just didn't choose to do it, but maybe they will. Here's a good comment from Tony saying, since the character was introduced, I've never warmed to any of his storylines. I usually like an Australian accent, but the character Kane mumbles. Mostly, I can't understand what he's saying, and he presents it with no inflection. I didn't like the pairing with Lily. I would have liked to have seen him with Abby, even back in the day when Abby had a little bit more spunk. That's so interesting because I've heard that comment several times that people had trouble understanding what he was saying. Maybe that is something that the writers took into consideration. It's so correctable. I never had any trouble with it, but it would have been nice maybe if he would have gotten that note and tried to fix that so that more viewers could understand what he's saying, because that is a big deal. That is a legit concern. If you can't understand what an actor is saying, it's a problem. It's a problem that I didn't have. But I love your idea that he could have been paired with Abby. Why not pair him with Abby right now? And I'm not saying that as a last ditch, I'll take anything. I think that's a good idea. She's single. She was Lily's best friend. That would have been a great storyline. But they just chose not to do it. And again, I want to make sure that I'm representing the negative side of the coin too, because I have rose-tinted glasses on when it comes to Kane. And I pulled myself back from saying something a little more naughty. Please note. T. Nicole says, even though there hasn't been a good story for Kane in the past while, that doesn't mean Y&R should get rid of Kane. That is the writer's fault for not knowing how to write this character back into relevant storylines. Kane can play a huge part with the Chancellor family as well as a part of the Winners clan. I think that a Devon-Kane friendship would have been interesting. I don't know why they never went there. Or even a rivalry. That would have been fine too. Tiffany says, I have to say, I am not exactly surprised that Kane won't be in the show anymore. In a show this big and this expansive, when you start trying storyline after storyline, relationship after relationship, once they bring in so many new and old characters at once, like Amanda, Theo, Chelsea, Connor, Chloe, etc., it's inevitable that someone has to go. And Daniel said to himself, with Lily not being around and the loss of Neil, Rip Kristoff, there's not much to work with, so it isn't surprising. Well, my only thing is I feel like there's tons to work with. They don't need to cast a bunch of new characters. They don't need to have a million different storylines going on at once. I think Kane could have had a relationship with Abby. He could have worked with Devon. He could have been the one to blackmail Chelsea. He could have realized that he was the long-lost Abbott grandson. I mean, there's any number of directions they could have chosen to take, but they don't do it. But I think you're hitting on an important thing here, Tiffany, in that they are touching on so many new storylines that there isn't a lot of focus. I'm trying to remember, maybe it was Sandra who said 2 weeks ago that that's what she's feeling, that there's too many stories on the show right now and you're not really getting into any of them. This is a great example in and of the fact that we ramped up this inheritance storyline for Devon. Kane gets the money last week. What did we hear about it this week? Not a thing. I do think that Y&R needs to bring it in a little bit. And yeah, like you said, there's a bunch of new. We're getting the Simon Black. We're getting Eric Vanderway. Why do we need to keep making it bloated? Why can't we pull it back in and focus on the people that we have and that the fans care about? And maybe, I don't know, touch on stories at least once a week. Like there are so many separate stories going on the show right now. I mean, I don't know, are we gonna get, I'm not saying every day has to be a story, but at least once a week maybe touch on something. Touch on them all. I think making Kane the long lost Abbott heir would have been a great idea. I like Theo, but I guess I probably would have preferred Kane if I had to pick. I like Theo a lot. He's like my favorite thing on the show right now, but I'm a purist, you know. I like my seasoned actors. Well, Laura is not in love with Theo. Laura says, this Theo is okay, but I'm a bit looking forward to the next incarnation. Maybe it's the sideburns or the way he talks about stupid influencers. Sandra says, I totally get it. I didn't even grasp what the heck an influencer was all about, let alone someone who manages them. The whole line of work is stupid and excessive. Theo needs to put down his iPhone, get back to his working man roots, and get a real job. I mean, how else will he support his future lover, dare I say, future baby mama from a one-night stand, Lola? Oh, that's funny. I like your sensibility too, Sandra. Superplex makes a good point here about the whole working class versus rich class dynamic. Superplex says there is no conflict in Eric being a paradigm of the working class. It actually fits in quite nicely. Given the natural jealousies that characterize class warfare, it's only logical that Eric should harbor an innate resentment over the fact that his true station in life was denied to him, and he was tragically relegated to living amongst the pell-mell that constitute the greater mass of society. Yes, I mean, you know, it's curious to know or to think about why they have said that Eric Vanderway is working class and he was this union leader and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I think it's going to turn out that he is a scammer if he had faked his own death, or maybe he had amnesia and didn't remember who he was. I don't know how they're going to shake all of that out, but I think you make a really good point that maybe they've brought up class because he's going to have an issue with it. And that there's going to be a conflict there between working class there and the Abbott class. Allie also makes an interesting point on the website. I wanted to include here. This was a comment that I said early in the week, and I think it's a good point to bring up. So assuming that Eric Vanderway is Theo's dad, of course this was earlier in the week that I said this, it's going to be very telling to see which way Y&R drives Theo's story. If Theo knows that his dad is alive, he's going to gain instant villain status for lying to Summer about his father's death and possibly plotting something more sinister. If Theo doesn't know that his dad is alive, that means that Y&R's working on his redemption story, making him instead the victim of his father's deceit. So yeah, I think whether or not Theo knows that his father is alive is going to say a lot about who Theo is. But now that I think about it, there's a third option. I mean, the guy is alive, and there's the possibility that he always knew he had this family out there and he lied about his own death, but there's also the possibility he had some amnesia or something, which would make him come back as this paradigm of working class and not as a scammer. We'll see. Maybe Y&R will touch on this a couple weeks from now. No, actually, I think he's scheduled to come this week. I think it was November 6th or 7th. So by the end of the week, we should have Evie. Laura, I'm loving your comments this week, and this is a good question. Laura asked, how did they film that scene with Kyle where the background was closing in faster than his face? Yes, Laura, I'm so glad you brought this up, because they used, this is called a dolly zoom, this particular technique. They used that in Kyle's scene where he first realized that Theo's father's name was Eric Vanderway, that Theo could be his cousin. There was this scene where it's sort of zooming the background and zooming Kyle's face at the same time. It's very dramatic. They also used it on Friday with Chelsea, where Kevin's telling her that the money is gone, she's facing the camera, and we see both the background and her face zoom in at the same time. So a dolly zoom, this happens to be something I know, it's when the camera is on a dolly. It is literally on a track. So it's, if you picture a train track, there's the train track, and then there's a stand that holds the camera, and the camera can move back and forth on its own. And so when they're doing the dolly zoom, they're actually zooming in the camera physically while using the camera's lens to zoom in physically. So you're getting this dual zoom of both the background and the subject. And so somebody must have really, I don't know who was doing the camera work this week, but somebody loves a dolly zoom and decided to do not one but two. And I noticed that very much because it's a technique that we don't really see on Y&R all that much. It's more of a film technique, but I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't do it. I think it's very effective as long as they're not overdoing it. Oh, let's get into Jamie's big beef for the week. Jamie says, Nate is my big point of contention. He's behaving so self-righteously. The way that he was with Victor, and Victor was even like, hey, I'm gonna do whatever I can for you. Victoria said the same thing. It's like, hello, Nate is a grown-ass man who made his own decision to lie. It's so gross that he's so whiny about it. I agree. I mean, I know he is whiny and he is angry. I just think he felt really betrayed by Victor because the implication was that Victor was going to help smooth things over. And you got to admit, he was a little bit of an ally, and Victor let him hang out to dry. But like you said, Victor was offering to help him. Not that Victor Newman can work magic. I mean, I think we know that Nate's going to probably not lose his license, but Nate thinks he might. You know, Nate thinks that he is on the verge of losing everything that he's wanted, all of his dreams. He doesn't want to have to leave Genoa City to choose between his career or, you know, his family who lives in Wisconsin. So I think, I mean, that's just sort of how I interpreted it, but I agree he was not very smart in that scene with Victor. I mean, Victor is coming into the scene going, well, I'm so sorry about all this. Mea culpa. I'll go before the board. I'll tell them everything. I will write you a letter of recommendation, whatever I got to do to make it right. And Nate lashed out at him and kind of created a little bit of an enemy when he didn't need to. It was not a smart move of Nate's to lash out, but I think he's dealing with a little bit of anger issues. And I think part of the other reason that I kind of like it is because it gives Nate something. I mean, he's just so much nuttin'. And at least if he's angry at Victor, it's something, you know? Daisy says, wasn't Paul involved in the Adam sting operation? I can't imagine that the board going after Nate as he was helping the law draw out the person who tried to kill his patient. And it's equally odd that Nate blames Victor for his decision to help. So I hope it's a ploy to catch whomever Amanda's working for. I'm so glad, though, that Victor is getting info on Amanda. Makes me wonder if Devon asked him to help flesh out the criminals, and of course Victor would help him. He loved Catherine and Neil and would do anything for Devon, so hopefully this thing with Nate and Victor is some type of sting, and Paul is involved as well. I know, I like the idea of Victor wanting to help Devon because he respected and loved Neil so much. Yeah, I wonder if this is going to be a one-time phone call. Is Victor going to actually give us any info? And we still got to get there in terms of who is Amanda working for. I mean, it almost seems like a closed book now that Devon's given away the money, but maybe Victor making that phone call was Y&R's way of touching on that story and unveiling to us who was behind that whole lawsuit. Well, let's see. Diana says, when Nate was speaking to Amanda, he told her that he used to be Nikki and Victor's physician, but he forgot to mention how he was Victoria's doctor as well. Oh, I like that comment, and I wanted to bring it up because I thought it was interesting that Y&R bothered to have Nate and Victoria have a conversation. I think that was maybe Y&R's nod to Victoria and Nate's connection, because I can't see otherwise why Victoria and Nate were talking. I mean, they were friendly for a while, almost seemed like some sparks were gonna fly, and then that just went away when the actor moved into, he went away and they brought Nate back as a different actor with a Abby hookup, but I don't know, maybe that was a nod to the past relationship. Maybe it was a little bit of a clue to a future relationship. Don't know. You know, though, Laura says, Phyllis needs a new shtick. She can't be all about Newman revenge forever. Get over it, Phyllis. It's a big, fat, hairy yawn. Yes, I think this is an interesting point too, Laura, because we can't have Nate going after Victor and Phyllis going after Victor at the same time. Like, pick one person to have the vendetta against Victor, and then let somebody else do something else. But I agree that Phyllis is ongoing, relentless, just like, won't stop talking about Victor. I get where she's coming from. Like, I understand how she feels. Like, we've processed how she felt about the Marco situation over and over and over. It's just, in terms of the story, like, can she do something else? Can she be something else? It's dragging on. There's other ways I think you could go with Phyllis that would be much more interesting. Gary says, what's up with Adam fork deviling over the $10 million so that Phyllis can better orchestrate her evil life? His ideas, hilarious. And her tearing up saying that he can't get rid of her that easy. What am I missing? Phyllis has nothing on Adam. They are casual, diabolical frenemies. So who is Phyllis to tell Adam that he can't shake her loose? Great insult, though, to find your frenemy who just can't quit you, such a pest that you'll make them a millionaire just to go away and never talk to me again. I mean, no kidding. Adam's not that rich either. As far as I know, he only got like $50 million from Victoria, and he just tried to give away $10 million of it to make Phyllis go away. And why is Phyllis so desperate? It's not only that she's so desperate with Victor, but she's so desperate when it comes to Adam. I'm tired of her pumping him up, telling him how brilliant he is and what a great dad he is. It's coming off as needy. Phyllis is so needy. Like, take the money and run. Find somebody else to be your cohort. It's kind of gross and irritating. I kind of want to see a Phyllis and Adam relationship, but the dynamic is all off. The balance of power is all off. She's throwing herself at him week after week after week. And he keeps saying no. He even, as you say, tried to give her that much money just to go away. I don't get it from her angle, and I don't really get it from his angle either. I don't know. What's the problem with, like, letting Phyllis hang around? She, at the very least, is someone who can do your bidding, Adam. I don't know. I don't get it. This is a really funny comment also from Laura. Why can Victor and Adam come back from the dead, but Delia can't? Y&R got it backwards, and it stinks. Well, I picked this comment too, Laura, because speaking of back from the dead, we had that little interaction between Victor and Kevin this week, which was funny. It was about time, really, because Victor is the only one who knew that Chloe was still alive. And I thought it was pretty funny that Kevin came up to Victor and said, you know, I give you a 9 out of 10 on the whole fake death thing. We're even, right? No biggies, no big deal that we agreed that Chloe would stay dead. And now she's not. We totally went back on that. We're even though, right? I feel like that was Y&R sweeping up a little bit. Like sweeping up that story. Maybe they didn't realize that that was part of the deal for Chloe. She got out scot-free. She got to go live her life, but she had to stay dead. Victor helped her fake her death. And then Victor was never brought back up when she was brought back to life. Oh, speaking of Eric Braeden here, Daisy sent me a message with a link to Eric Braeden's Twitter. He had to evacuate his home this week because of the California wildfires. I saw that also on Soaps in Depth, and I don't know if he's back in his home or when you get to go back into your home or even where you go. I admittedly I don't understand how the wildfires work. Is it like, why is it such a problem? Is it maybe Gary can enlighten me, because Gary lives out in that area, and I guess I just don't get, is it arson? Is somebody starting these fires and it's just so dry and it catches on? Or is it an accident? Is it like somebody did not follow Smokey the Bear's advice, did not put out their campfire, and it just spreads? Like, I don't understand how that gets so out of control. It's interesting, because that's sort of the natural disaster of that area that I guess you just kind of have to be aware of. The only thing I can relate it to here in the Midwest is like, we just gonna have to deal with tornadoes and floods. That's just part of living in the Midwest. If you live in a coastal town or the Caribbean, you're just gonna have to deal with hurricane season. If you live on the west, or along the San Andreas fault line, you got your earthquakes. I mean, it's just like a natural disaster, I guess, for living in probably one of the most beautiful places in the country. It's very unfortunate. I hope that there isn't any damage done to the homes, because I imagine they evacuate days prior if they think the fire's getting close to you. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to lose your home. Didn't Tracy E. Bergman lose her home in a fire a couple years ago? Did I make that up? I'm not sure. But gosh, it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. And so unfortunate. I'm sorry to hear that for him. Well, in other real life actor news, Leslie says, has anybody else noticed that the actor who played Ravi is in the new Nissan Altima commercial? I was racking my brain to remember where I knew him from, and finally found it on Google. He was such a fun character. What a missed opportunity. He could have been good with Abby or Tracy. Ooh, no, I have not seen Ravi in this commercial, but I will look it up. I figure there's probably 100 people out there right now who are like, oh yeah, I have seen Ravi. No, I haven't seen him, but I sure miss him. This is a great point. He would have been a good match for Abby. Since he likes older ladies, he would have been a good match for Tracy. See, I think Ravi is another good example of a character who had so much potential. I mean, he would have been good with any number of other ladies in town. I would have loved to have kept him around, see what he could have been up to. But I also understand why, with a newer character, the writers would choose to exercise their ability to cut and run. It's just, when someone's been on the show for over a decade, oh, seems like that might be someone that it might be worth finding a way to work in. It's gonna take me some time to get over this, y'all. You didn't expect me to just get over it in 1 week, right? Because then we're gonna have to go through the whole process of Kane's exit story. It's making me feel so many things right now. I haven't really heard anything extra from Daniel Goddard either, but I didn't go looking at his social media. Maybe I should do that. I mean, I don't really like looking up the actors, what's going on in their personal stuff. I don't want to see it. I like keeping my fantasy within the confines of my fantasy. I don't want to look at anything or accidentally see something that's going to change how I feel about my fantasy. I love actors. They have their own lives, and thank you so very much for your service, but I want to keep my characters intact. That's the only way I can kind of do this, is if I sort of believe it. Like, I don't want to be tainted. I want to stay within the confines of the story so that I can re-represent it and talk about it here with you guys. Okay, I'm done talking. I really am. I think you should talk to me. So go to yrchat.com. Get all your talking out. Say what you gotta say. I pick and choose my comments. Usually pick things that touch on items that I didn't get to in my part of the Y&R chat. So you guys really do a great job of helping give me a well-rounded perspective for the week. So please feel free to do that and to come back next week. I'll be here. Will you? I hope so. Okay. I love you guys. Have a wonderful week.